So to everybody listening, we have a guest on the podcast today. His name is Simon Belanger. Am I saying that right?
Close. It's Belanger. It's French.
Belanger. Okay, there
Yeah.
we go. Simon Belanger. I own a local business called Superior Nutrition Consulting Services, and he has a Bachelor of Sciences.
Yes.
Okay,
In
and
nutritional sciences. Yeah.
nutritional sciences, correct. So of course, wealth of knowledge by the sounds of things based on his background. So do you want to kind of talk to everybody how you got into nutrition and kind of why you do what you do?
Yeah, for sure. So basically, I started working out, I think, when I was around 18, actually. So I started a bit later than obviously you. And because of, I was actually initially doing police at the college. I was doing police foundations and stuff, and then started working out because of their fitness class there. And then I just started to enjoy it a lot. And then I started to get into more like how to eat properly to gain muscle and whatnot. So, and because of that, I just really had an interest in nutrition. Then I continued on with my career as I went to security at LU for 5 years, and I was just decided that that wasn't the path for me. And my fiance decided to, encourage me to go back to school when I was like 27, I think, or 28. So I did that, and then I got my degree, and now I'm a dietitian. I got did my internship, did my exam, and now I'm starting my business here. I moved back from Winnipeg actually about a year ago now. I was in Winnipeg for about 5.5 years.
Okay.
And so now I'm back here. I did a bit of long-term care work. I'm still doing that on a casual basis, but I really am interested in sports and sports nutrition, and that's why I started my own business to work with recreational athletes or even like up to varsity level, and as well just anybody with chronic diseases. Of course, that's what a dietitian works with mostly, is that's our scope, is working with diabetes, renal disease, all those types of things. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I do. I kind of work with a variety of people in my office, and yeah, so it's going well.
Super cool. So the majority of my audience, I believe, typically benefits from kind of how to get into training. I think a lot of them are beginners.
Yeah.
That's typically the content I focus on. So the discussion that we were planning on discussing today was your top 5 tips for beginners to get them set on the right path for nutrition. So if you want to get started there with what your tips are, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So I think my first tip would be to just learn how to read a food label.
Right.
And learn how to read an ingredient list and what that means. So, by doing this, allows you to be more aware of what foods contain protein, what contains fat, what contains carbs, what's high in sodium, right? Those types of things. Learning so it allows you to make a better choice when you're at the grocery store, right? You can go, oh, okay, this yogurt actually has double the protein of regular yogurt, right? The Greek yogurt. So you can kind of compare products and just learn how to read labels like that.
Right.
And also just learning how to read the ingredients. So, of course, the first ingredient is what's the product is the most made up of. So if you see sugar or something in a product that's not supposed to have sugar in it, or that kind of thing, then that's like a warning sign, right? To let you know, like, maybe that's probably not the best choice for me. So I think that's something that people just need to learn how to do, just basic nutrition skills.
For sure. And I think a lot of it too is when somebody has the ability to read their own nutrition label, it gives them confidence in making their own decisions. So they're not always so influenced by, oh, this person on TV said sugar's terrible and this person said fat's terrible. They kind of look at it and they can make their own decisions on what they buy.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely.
No doubt. So what's your next tip?
My next tip is just understanding that there is no best diet. So, you need to find a way to eat that it includes foods that you enjoy, that also make you feel good, gives you good energy. It also meets your, protein needs for whatever goals you have, your carbohydrate needs for whatever goals you're working towards.
Right.
And of course, getting enough fiber in your day, getting your micronutrients from fruits and veggies, and just anything, whatever fits your lifestyle is what's best for you, right? You're the pro in your life, so you're the one who knows what works best. So if you like to skip breakfast and eat starting at lunch, then maybe that's okay. And if you feel okay in the morning and you don't feel busy or lightheaded, like maybe that's the way for you, right? If you don't like to eat breakfast, you don't feel well after eating breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
So just like considering those types of things.
For sure, yeah. There's so much stuff that goes into what works for an individual, their schedule, what their body responds best to, all that sort of thing. And I put out a Twitter post on Instagram not that long ago. And of course, there's all kinds of nutrition plans for whatever your goal is. But when a lot of people think of a diet, they think of it for the goal of fat loss. And I said that a diet can work, because every diet can work if it's all the right check marks, but it can go from can work to likely won't work very quickly if you can't sustain it in the long term.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely how it goes. If you don't enjoy it, it's not gonna work. So
yeah, like if you love your carbohydrates and you go on a diet that takes away those completely, what do you think the chances of you being able to sustain that diet are? You think you're just gonna flip a switch and stop eating carbs for the rest of your 20, 30, 40, 50 plus years on Earth?
Yeah, I guess carnivore wouldn't work well for those people, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I'm not promoting carnivore at all here. That's kind of a crazy diet right now, crazy fad right now. But yeah.
You follow Jordan Side on Instagram, right?
Yeah, he's doing that right now, which is
he's doing a challenge just to kind of see what it's like, and so he can put a more perspectiveful viewpoint and guidelines advice out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely don't want to do that myself, but
me neither. I like meat, but I also like to have some carbs with my meat.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So let's go into tip number 3 then.
So my third tip would be to balance your meals. So by balancing, I mean, having a meal that includes some sort of protein source, some sort of fruit or vegetable, as well as like a starch or a grain. I think for in general, just, doing that will allow you to ensure you're getting enough protein like spread out throughout the day, which is more effective than having it all at supper, which a lot of people I find that I see even are consuming a lot of protein at supper and like barely anything at breakfast or at lunch sometimes. So by consciously making sure you're having that protein at each meal and having a decent amount at each meal is really important. I think it also helps with hunger, fullness. Your hunger, like it keeps you full by having protein at your meals.
Absolutely.
And, I think also just having that fruit or veggie at each meal or snack. Like I try to make that like a non-negotiable when I eat.
Right.
It just helps you make sure you hit your micronutrients too. So.
And that's something that I personally kind of slack with a lot of the time. Is I'll make sure I get my carbohydrates and my eggs in, my eggs and my Eggos as a lot, but then sometimes won't eat the banana or the apple at lunchtime, and that's something that what I'm going to try to start implementing myself is eat that first, so then you get that out of the way, and then there's nothing to worry about after as far as taking in your micronutrients for that meal.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a good idea.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that, you kind of just talked about the balanced meal, brought into mind the Canada Food Guide. I've just got to.
Yeah, it's basically that's what during my internship for diabetes education, that's kind of how we're taught to for healthy eating for people with diabetes. That's kind of how we're taught to teach them. Like nutrition education is make your plate half a veggie, like half your plate's a vegetable or fruit, part of a fruit, right? And then a quarter of your plate would be a protein source and a quarter would be your starch or grain. That's kind of how for like blood sugar reasons, that's kind of how we would teach somebody with diabetes. So even just for anybody, I think that's a great way of eating. So
absolutely,
following that, even because we've moved away from that rainbow, that food guide rainbow, which is kind of nice. So yeah, I really enjoy that new food guide.
Awesome. So that was the third. It's going to the fourth tip.
So the fourth tip, I think, would be just being flexible with your approach to nutrition.
Right.
No one's perfect. Like even dietitians aren't perfect with their diets. Like we like to eat ice cream and pizza and everything too, right? So it's not like
double.
You can't eat those things. So it's just being consistent, right? It's kind of I know people always say consistency is key, which is a true thing. Like being consistent with your calorie intake, consistent with your protein intake, things will fall into place eventually, and you'll see those changes. And then just to let yourself enjoy those, fun or junk foods or whatever you want to call them, less nutritious foods, just in moderation.
For sure. And I think a lot of people get wrapped up in the having to be so super strict about things, and causing a vicious cycle of, oh, well, I messed up. Now there's no point. Oh, let's get back on it. And it's a vicious cycle, whereas consistency doesn't equal perfection. So when you're given advice to be consistent, it's not saying you have to be consistently perfect. It's saying be consistent with your nutrition being quality and conducive to your goals overall in the long term.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. That's exactly how I feel. And I try to promote that with my clients when I see them. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your last tip there, Simon?
Last tip is, once you kind of nail down these kind of main tips I talked about, I think tracking your calorie intake is a really eye-opening experience for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Using like an app like MyFitnessPal, or I use Chronometer quite a bit. I'm actually tracking kind of right now a little bit here and there just to see how I'm doing. And that one actually I feel like is better because it shows you the whole range of micronutrients in it. Like in your diet that you're consuming. So like MyFitnessPal doesn't really give you that. It'll just give you like, your vitamin C, your vitamin or your calcium, and there's a couple of just nutrients it tells you. I think without buying that, for the free version at least, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, tracking your intake, using a food, like buy a food scale, like try to be as accurate as you can, just to see like what are you actually taking in? Like, how much protein are you getting? Are you getting enough that you need to, for muscle repair, for whatever goal you are trying to do, like building muscle or fat loss or whatever it may be. It just also, like with food label reading, it also kind of gives you an idea like, oh, there's like really high fat in this food, or there's a lot of protein in this one, or it just educates you, right? This is not meant to be like a lifelong thing. This is just to educate you, and then eventually you can work away from not having to to track like that, because it's kind of tedious.
Yeah, for sure. And I like you said, it doesn't have to be a lifelong thing, because one of the main things about tracking is just understanding what's in a food. So then you can go off and not go out and say, oh, well, how am I going to track this? You can kind of just look at it and be like, okay, this is roughly what it's at. And you can kind of start to put together your own plan just by looking at things. Because when you track for long enough, you can look at a food and get a pretty good estimate for the nutrition.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really, really important point. So just once you can kind of get down those 4 like tips, and then work on like trying to track. Don't track right away. I wouldn't recommend trying that right away at first, but just once you can kind of nail down those first 4 tips, working on tracking your intake and seeing what you're eating is really important. And yeah.
And there's another new app for tracking called Mike's Macros. I don't know if you've heard of it. A guy named Mike Vacanti, a good friend of Jordan Syatt, made it. And the thing I like about that is it doesn't have like a user food base in it. He put all the foods in it himself. So I think it's, for somebody who's starting out, it's super straightforward because number one, you can trust everything that's going into it. And there's not all confusing names for all the foods and everything. It's like, okay, this is what I ate. This is what I'm putting in it, right? So I'm not sure if it has micronutrients there or not. I would think it does, but I think it's just super straightforward. So like I kind of opened it up and looked at it a little bit, and I really like the looks of that one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I've never heard of that one. I know there's a lot out there now, so
yeah, for sure.
A lot of different apps. So whatever you enjoy, right? And
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much my tips. So
awesome. Thank you very much for coming on, Simon. Where can people find you on social media or wherever you want?
You can find me at Superior Nutrition T Bay on Instagram as well as Facebook.
Okay, awesome.
If you find that you're struggling with your nutrition, come see me. Like I'm there to help. So
awesome. So yeah, you heard it, guys. If you guys want any help with your nutrition, Simon's the man to go see. Thank you very much for hopping on the podcast. Really appreciate your time, and I hope to do another one with you sometime in the future.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate the invite.
For sure. Take care, Simon.
Talk to you later.